Good evening, everyone. This is Take a Stand, Damita Chatman, your host today. This is a special edition talking about Project 2025. We usually be on I say summer break, but we thought it was very important for us to educate and talk about Project 2025 because this is going to affect everyone, not just the minority folks, but everyone. Today, my guest is Mr. Richard Rose. We had three on last month, and I wanted to do a one-on-one with each one of them, give them a whole hour to let's talk. So today we have Mr. Richard Rose. We're going to let him introduce himself, and then we'll go into the show. Mr. Rose, thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm Richard Rose, President. I'm CEO of Communities United for Justice Foundation. We are 501c3. We engaged in political justice, educational justice, environmental justice, criminal justice. We continue to work. I started when I was president of the Atlanta NACP, but we are not limited to Fulton County or Atlanta, Georgia. We are working with other state organizations in North Carolina and Virginia to press this fight against the injustice that's being compounded by a certain political party, even now in 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. We're going to go, since the Project 2025 is big and it's important. So what I want to do, I want to spend maybe 10 minutes on each number, and I'm going to call them out, and you can go on and you can talk about it. The first one is the White House office. Let's talk about that one, Mr. Rose.
So what the intent is, and let me say this: Project 2025 is documented by the Heritage Foundation, but some of the things that it advocates were already tried to be implemented by the Trump administration before 2021. So there are 20 points, and as you're right, the White House office is number one. So currently, employees of the federal government are prohibited from working in a political using the office for political functions or political activities. It's called the Hatch Act, and violation of the Hatch Act, of course, unfortunately, can only be initiated by the president. So we knew under 45, Kellyanne Conway was a political person who, with an office in the White House, she violated the Hatch Act in so many ways and so many times we can't even count them. But what Project 2025 wants to do is give the president the option and the power to remove any political, any Hatch Act constraints, and allow the president to, in essence, to be a king, starting with White House employees who should be executive employees of the executive branch, but it will combine the executive branch with the political association and the political objectives of a sitting president. And this is, and the intent is for that president to be Donald J. Trump. So and in fact, there was an action by Trump before he left the White House to remove the civil service protections from White House employees. Now, when Biden became president, he repealed those actions, but it starts obviously in the White House, and that is to take away any constraints so that every employee, even employees paid by the federal government, can work on the exclusive behalf of the president.
So, in other words, if he want, I'm trying to think of a name. If he want I'm gonna say Kemp. If he want Kemp to come up there and work, Kemp, he can get Kemp to come up there and work for him. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And there's no prohibition on those employees at all. In fact, what they want to do is to implement the president's agenda by setting priorities for the White House or office. Political objectives, not the executive staff, not the traditional obligations and initiative that we know about, but new ones that we have seen Donald Trump try to implement when he was in White House. And basically he ignored the laws, ignored the tradition, and did things like that we know about, removing documents from top security documents from the White House, or disclosing them, and disclosing information to people out that shouldn't know, that shouldn't have that information, which could have included Putin of Russia. So it's very important to pay attention to these objectives, because they will affect us. They start at the top, but they will affect rank and file individuals all across America.
Okay, thank you. Now, the next one is the number 2, and it's talking about the executive office of the President of the United States. You kind of touch bases on that, so
yeah, I did.
We can go on. Let's talk about the Central Personnel Agency managing the bureaucrats. So let's talk about that one.
So, America has a civil service system, and that was implemented some time ago so that a new president could not come in and wholesale fire or demote or rearrange civil service government employees, federal government employees, to fit his or her whims or his objectives. We have a civil service system that not only protects the employees from being summarily fired for political reasons, but it also it protects employees from being pressured to perform political tasks and political objectives, so that they will not lose their jobs. That civil service system has its own structure, its own hierarchy, where you have to apply for a job through the civil service system. No politician can interfere in the system, although I'm sure some of them try. But that civil service system keeps the government running from year to year without regard to who's in the White House. So the Small Business Administration, rank and file, for example, the secretary of the Small Business Administration is a political appointment, but the people who are there day by day doing the function of the Small Business Administration or the Department of Agriculture are unfettered by political whims, because they have the protection of the civil service system and the personnel agencies within it.
So let me ask you, what do you think is the driving force behind them trying to take over the civil service?
Well, their objective, I believe, is absolute control and political control. So that, for example, if there's a we got a hurricane and a tropical storm coming through the
Florida.
East Coast right now, coming to Florida. It's supposed to go through Savannah and up Charleston and Wilmington, North Carolina. So without these, if they have complete control, that means that needed federal money might skip over Georgia, because Georgia didn't vote for President Trump last time. The president said, well, they didn't vote for me, so I'm not going to send needed federal money in disaster relief. I can and just direct the civil service not to do that. So there's so many interchanges where federal money goes through the state or could go directly to be able to move people move money and funds and people just based on the whims of a political decision would tear up America as we know it today.
So it's basically just using the political game. Just like if I don't vote for you, if you run for the mayor and I don't vote for you, so now you basically going to try to blackball me because I didn't vote for you. It's basically about the same thing, isn't it?
Right. And so they would say, well, you can't get I'm not going to pick up your trash because you didn't vote for me.
Okay. I see. I see that happening on the local level. So I understand. Okay, let's talk about the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense is kind of huge because you have all the militaries. You're talking about the going to different wars if it be there become that, and you're also talking about people that work for the Department of Defense. They benefits. Let's talk about that.
So, of course, as you mentioned, defense, we have the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. And they are run by the president by Constitution is the commander in chief. But they have their process where they promote and they assign particular jobs. We have the Joint Chiefs of Staffs where it's not always the Army, it's not always the Navy or the Air Force. That person is changes. Now that person has to work with the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary of Defense is an appointed. That's a presidential appointment. But the armed services, while the president is the commander in chief, they have their own structure as well. Sort of like it's different from the civil service, but it kind of mirrors it in terms of it. The Navy, those admirals, they control what goes on in the Navy. The generals control the Army and so forth.
So let me ask you, hold on, you left out the Marine Corps. So where do the Marine Corps fall? Do they fall under this also?
They do, but the Marine Corps is a part of the Navy.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So what they want to do is take away those protections, but take away that firewall that exists now between the armed services and the commander in chief and the president. Right now, nobody beyond the president, not the vice president, not the chief of staff, not any other political appointee, can intercede or interfere with the armed services activities. It has to be the president of the United States. What they want to do is tear down that firewall so that the president can decide who to go to war for. And the other part about the Congress must approve going to war. That's a power that's relegated to Congress, although the president is the commander in chief. But the president can't decide who to go to war with. What their objective is to make the president more of a king or a dictator, and that dictator can decide whether he or she what he wants to do. Whether they don't like black folk, they don't like gay folk, they don't like Mexicans. I mean, they can make decisions at will based on their own biases and preferences. Again, toward dictatorship like Hitler and Putin in Russia and Orban in Turkey.
Do you think that if the election don't go the way that I think it should go, do you think that they would try to make the United States something like what Putin is running right now?
Well, I think that's the objective, and that's the objective of the Heritage Foundation. This study group clearly intended to change democracy as we know it. Democracy is not perfect. It hadn't been perfect for African Americans ever in this since the dawning of this country. But what we do have protections of the law where we can employ it, where we have had to employ the Constitution and other laws to thwart discrimination. Under if you take away under the Project 2025, we will be going back to a dictatorship with unfettered appointment, even taking away some of the powers of the Congress, the Senate and the House. You know, right now, the president can nominate a judge. He can nominate a judge on a federal bench, but the Senate has to approve it. It is as what they call the advice and consent of the Senate for those appointments. The same thing for all of the secretaries. The Secretary of State, for example, the president can nominate a Secretary of State, but the Senate must approve it. So if you take away those safeguards that are built in, we will no longer have democracy as we know it. This is a democratic republic, and it would take away the democratic side of where we are in America.
Okay, let me ask you a question on the Department of Defense. I'm thinking because we were part of the military. You know, some people that's in the military is not qualified to be a general and a warrant officer. Or do you think under this Project 2025, they can go in there and handpick the people that they think they can control to be the generals and the officers of the military?
Of course they can. That's their intent, is to strip away the safeguards, strip away the structure of promotions, and allow the president to insert him or herself into the functions of the military for whatever purposes that person might have. And we don't want our friends, and we don't want our, no matter if it's our friend, the president, we still don't want that friend to have the power that is suggested in here in 2025.
Thank you. And I think that our friend, or if the other person get in office, I think that they should all just follow the guidelines that is laid out in the Constitution that they should do. That's my take. Okay, thanks. Let's talk about the Department of Homeland Security. They're talking about stripping that, so that means the borders will be open. Basically, it's just everything is free game. If you want to go out and shoot a little Ray.
Yeah, so Homeland Security is combined with the CIA, the FBI, and the Secret Service.
Okay.
And the Secret Service is part of Treasury. And so each one of them have separate functions, and they work together. Excuse me. What we found out from 911 is there needs to be a more cohesive collaboration on day-to-day activities and information about threats to this country, both domestic and foreign. And so if you take away the Homeland Security or substantially modify it, we will go back to the pre-911 days, the 911 2001. We will go back to not having the kinds of safeguards to protect us from enemies, foreign and domestic. And one of those enemies that concern me is going back. You know, we still have a major component in the Confederate States of America. In Georgia, for example, you know, Georgia has the largest shrine of white supremacy at Stone Mountain in the history of the world. These states, after emancipation of Black people in 1863 and again in 1865, they collaborated together to deny the rights of African Americans. We do not want to see a similar situation coming back if you take away the safeguards that are built into those law enforcement agencies.
I'm not going to get off topic, but you said something, and I'm going to ask you a question because I've been hearing this since I've been in Georgia. I've been following you for years, how you guys try to take down those monuments in Stone Mountain. Do you think if the Black people knew the history of Stone Mountain, would they run up there on Easter to have a prayer, look at the prayer service and go camping? Do you think they would run up there and do that?
Well, apparently, I don't think they would if they understood uh, what people don't understand about Stone Mountain is that uh, if you want something to last forever, to last a long time, you build it out of structure that would last. You don't put paper up. You don't put a billboard up. You want something to last a long time, you make it out of stone or metal. And that's what the segregationists and the racists did when they started Stone Mountain. When they started with the carvings back in 1922, they were intended to send a message that lasts a long time. No monument is history. Any and every monument, whether it's a statue of Jesus, a statue of Buddha, statue of King, or a statue of Jefferson Davis, every monument venerates an idea or a person. It's a political statement that says this person should be honored because he or she has done something great. And so when Georgia State, when in 1958, when Georgia bought Stone Mountain property and the governor decided he was going to finish the carvings, what he was saying is, we want to make this permanent. We want to make racism and oppression of African Americans permanent. And that's why we're going to finish these carvings. So, and the objective of these carvings is part of the two objectives of oppression. The only two objectives of oppression are deprivation, to deny resources, and degradation, to take away self-worth. And so what these monuments do is send the message that Black folk are inferior to white folk, and they should have less access to voting, less access to capital, less access to education, less access to job opportunities. They made them permanent by carving them out of stone and metal.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, let's talk about the Department of State.
So the Department of State, again, that deals with foreign affairs. So the Secretary of State is appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. Got to have a majority vote by the Senate. And what that does is, because it is there is a state function that exists. We have people who work for the State Department over years. They have people who speak the different languages of our allies or our adversaries, as it may be. And those people serve the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State is in charge of those people, those policies, those studies, that information. Any change where that structure would be at the whim of a new president would make us, susceptible to the whims of.
You want some water?
Yeah, excuse me.
Okay.
Would make us susceptible to the whims of a president whose objectives would not be in the best interest of Americans, the rank and file Americans like you and I.
Okay, go get you some water. I got a question while you drinking you some water, and I got a question I'm gonna read and let you go for that. Right now, we're listening at Mr. Richard Rose, the former NAACP president. Now he's under his own group, making sure that people understand Project 2025. I know it's a lot of people out there that's talking about Project 2025, but sometime when you come home and you get down in your own neck of the woods and hear from people that you walk and talk to every day, it gives a different outlook and perspective on what's going on. And so my goal is to make sure we educate the people so they can understand what's at stake here. Our democracy is on the line right now. We can say what we want. Some people now say that Project 2025 it ain't true. Listen, it's 922 pages long. I've started reading it, and I just have to stop for a while because I get in my feelings when I read it. We're gonna have to make sure that Project 2025 do not come uh, to fruition in 2025. And so we have to do what we have to do. Thank you, Mr. Rose. I know you get some water. Let's talk about let's see. Let's talk about the media agencies under Project 2025.
The media agencies. Oh, yeah. So, over time we have America has created departments to handle the communications and distribute materials around the world. So you have the Agency for Global Media, and of course you got the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Mr. Rose, let me stop you right there. You back. Let's get to this question. Somebody said, what type of people would go along with the potential new world order, or do people really understand what they're supporting?
Many times they don't understand what they're supporting. Who would go along with it would be people with money and means, what we would call oligarchs. We have to remember that the democracy that we experience now was not the intention, I don't think, of the interest, initial interest of Thomas Jefferson, Hamilton, and all those guys back in the 1700s, because they didn't want anybody to vote unless they were a male who owned property. So in a way, they just wanted a different oligarchy. The one that was in place, the King of England appointed governors over each of the colonies, and they all answered to, in the final analysis, they answered to the king. But the people with means and with a status and stature would not be as alarmed as you and I would be, because they believe that their money and their power will keep them protected. Now, in fact, history tells us that's not always the case. Mm-hmm. But other than those people, there are people who don't understand government, who can't define, don't understand fascism. They could be drawn by other conversations to talk about what their perceived enemies they are. So if the old saying is the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and they would be taken in by some of these campaign promises, like when President Trump was campaigning, he said, we're going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it. Well, that didn't happen. First of all, Mexico didn't pay for an inch of the wall. We couldn't build the total wall because the geography wouldn't let us. And the new walls that were built, they built them one day, and we had illegal immigrants going across them the same day.
Okay. Whew, wow. Let's talk about the intelligence community. Is this happening in the communities?
So again, intelligence is every nation across the world uses they have a spy network or intelligence network. They want to know what's going on in other countries that might affect them, what might affect their business interests. You mentioned the Marines a while ago. The Marine Corps hymn says, "From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli." And the Marines were protecting commercial shipping and commercial interests. So every nation has an agency, a spy agency, or intelligence agency that collects information and feeds it in to so that we know about conditions that might affect our commerce and our interests across the world. I know that that the spy agencies of everybody in the world right now knows where the oil interests are, where new oil might be, what's happening in the oil market. They also will know in some other special interests, other minerals like diamonds or like platinum or like other minerals that we use to manufacture computers. So the spy agencies keep up with that information, and also they are tasked with the job of identifying any specific threats to America or to American interests. I think our intelligence agencies get beyond what their objectives are at times. But we have to rely on the rest of the government to rein them in, and we have to rely on a free press that talks about that's able to examine the actions of government agencies and government interests and report it to Americans. That was the First Amendment to the Constitution, was freedom of press. And so the structure that we have, again, is not perfect, but the objectives of Project 2025 would make it far less so and far more dangerous, because the rights of the minority can never be entrusted to the majority. We have to have structure to protect us from the whims of the majority. It's got to be more than just we more than you, and we're going to outvote you.
Let me ask you before we go on, because you said something and I want to hear from you. I hear people say a lot, especially in the media, in this new era that we're going through. What in the heck is majority minority? Tell me, what is that?
Well, what that means is that in a particular district, county, for example, Gwinnett County, for example, in Georgia, the majority of the people are not white. They are not the majority of people in America are European descent, are white. But the majority of the people in Gwinnett County are made up of several minorities, which include African Americans, Native Americans, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, and so forth. So it is a majority minority county. The majority of the people are members of one or more minorities that are represented in this country.
Okay,
that's what that means.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna keep that in mind. Thank you for that. Let's talk about the Department of Agriculture. Let me ask you, that's dealing with the farming and our food and stuff. So let's talk about that. How would Project 2025 affect that?
So what Department of Agriculture do? Remember, when America was first started, it was a agriculture. We didn't have an industry. We had agriculture. We were farmers. That's why we vote on the first Tuesday in November, because the crops were already harvested, and so the farmers could take a couple of days and go into town and vote and hang around for a minute and then go back home. but America was was an agrarian society based on farming and agriculture and so the Department of Agriculture was created to help help American industry, which is farming at the time, uh, uh, stay strong so that our commerce would be strong, our economic base would be strong. And so it has done a lot of things, including help to finance crops.
Okay.
You have to plow the field, you have to plant the crops, you have to tend the crops, and then you harvest them, and then you get paid.
Okay.
So the Department of Agriculture was helping in that whole process, and also finding foreign markets for goods like cotton. America used to be the highest producer of cotton in the world. And that was helped to be managed by the Department of Agriculture.
Okay. Let's talk about the Department of Education. That falls in Project 2025. That will affect all the colleges, the universities, especially the colleges that we like to go to. So it would affect the Howards, the Morehouses. So let's talk about Department of Education.
So what Project 2025 wants to do is to disband the Department of Education, period. Another thing the Department of Education has started doing is protecting the rights of minorities to be educated. That there are English as a second language, that there are requirements. Georgia is fortunate that in 1865, Atlanta University was founded. And show you how significant that was. The Civil War ended in April of 1865, but in September of 1865, Atlanta University was holding classes. Morehouse was founded in 1867, Clark 1869, Marshbound 1861, Spelman 1883. Well, Marshbound 1881, Spelman 1883. It wasn't until 1890 that a public college was founded for Black folk in Georgia. That was Savannah State. And the reason it was founded, because Congress passed a law that required Southern states to create, the states of the Confederacy, to create a land grant institution to educate African Americans. And that didn't happen until 1890. Savannah State was founded in 1890. So if you take away Department of Education, then you take away the protections of Savannah State and Fort Valley State and Albany State and other Tennessee State in Tennessee and so forth. So without an opportunity for education, then you'll have an opportunity for economic benefit later on. Education, our forefathers knew that we need to be educated. And the white majority knew that we need to be educated. And that's why they fought so hard against it. In Atlanta didn't have a public high school for Black folk until 1924, 100 years ago. By that time, Atlanta University had been in business for 40 years. So taking away education protections is what the Department of Education does. It provides protections. I know people who work for the Department of Education, and they went through Alabama, Mississippi, and other states demanding that local school boards provide for education for all of its citizens, including the Black ones.
Let me ask you a question. I got two questions to ask you. Do you think they're trying to move us backwards to slavery? Somebody send that question into me.
Well, I don't think we'll get to slavery. I think what they want to do is extend the oppression economically to Black citizens. Not only Black citizens, but Native Americans as well. But that's clearly what their objective is. That's always been their objective. is to make it harder for us to try to achieve, and harder for us to reach economic goals, or become their economic equals. That is the objective of all of this oppression and suppression.
What you just asked, I was going to ask you another question, but I think you hit on it. I was going to ask you, do you think that they think that the minorities, the brown people, the Asians, everybody but them, do you think we're becoming more smarter,
But
more?
I don't think we coming more smarter. We already been smart. You know,
Okay, yeah, I got you. I tell you,
when
the way they think. Do you
well,
okay? Do
well, I
you
think they
think
recognize that.
we're moving we have moved the let me you think we have moved the needle so now that they're trying to make that needle go backwards because they see we're moving up the ladder faster? What do you think?
Well, I think that they're uh, Alexander Hamilton Stevens was the vice president of the Confederacy. He was a Georgia congressman. And he wrote this, he gave this speech in 1861, March of 1861 in Savannah, called the Cornerstone Speech. And he said, the cornerstone of the Confederacy is that the Negro is unequal to the white man, and his rightful place is subservient. I think though that's the objective then, that was the objective for the Civil War. And I think for a large part of white America, that is still the objective. Some of them, I think, some white people don't recognize that because it doesn't affect them. But I think that's clearly objective in all kinds of ways. In the symbolism of government, in the voter suppression, in access to capital, access to banking, access to public contracts. I think that remains the objective.
Right. Look, we getting so close to that time, so I just can't go down this list like this. I'm just gonna have to go on and hit it on some of the important things. Tell me, is Project 2025 gonna help or hinder people that's on Social Security, Medicaid, SSI? Is that what you call it? Welfare, SNAP. Is Project 25 gonna help or hinder them?
Project 25 will hinder all the protections that different races and citizens have across America. That's the objective, is to put it in the hands of a few people, few white people. And so yeah, it will hurt in every instance. Veterans, for example, they want to do away with the Department of Veteran Affairs and turn that over to under the whim of the president. All of those functions that tend to help commerce for people who don't have means is a target of Project 2025.
Okay, let me ask you, because I put out something and they came back and did a fact check on me and said that it was not true. So I'm gonna ask you again. In Project 2025, people that's working 40 hours, are they trying to cut the overtime?
I don't know. I didn't see that addressed. Okay. I don't know that. I am sure that the objective is to weaken labor unions and some of the standards that labor unions have started in America. For example, the 40-hour work week is a result of labor unions. Health insurance as a benefit is a result of labor union. Overtime pay after a certain number of hours is a benefit. It's a benefit of labor unions that is implemented in our labor laws for larger businesses now.
Okay, let me ask you this then. Let me ask you this. our goal, well, I'm gonna say, I don't know what your goal is, but my goal is to educate the people about Project 2025 and make sure that in November we get the right people in office so we won't have to have people wondering or which way they're going to go in January of 2025 if Project 2025 go in effect. Do you think that we should educate people about what's really going on? Because right now, if you hear, you don't hear the one side talking too much about Project 2025 right now. It's basically went like on the back door.
Well, I think more and more people understand the threat of Project 2025 and the threat of the Heritage Foundation. This is not just somebody sat down at a Starbucks and start putting stuff on paper. This was a directed, organized effort to recreate government as we know it in America. I think the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Societies are both dangerous to democracy as we know it, as they gain power. The Federalist Society, much of the Supreme Court bench and much of the Fulton County bench are judges who belong to the Federalist Society who have promised that they intend to change the judicial system in America as we know it. So, the Heritage Society, Heritage Foundation, is as dangerous to Black Americans as the Ku Klux Klan.
Yes,
that's my opinion.
Mr. Rose, if you don't mind, we're gonna go 20 minutes over because we got the cover, and I want to hear from you because I know you're gonna be busy. Let me ask you. Under this 2025, they're talking about question of banning books, jailing teachers, jailing homeless people, including the veterans. What do you think about that?
This is a class. Project 2025 is a tool of class warfare, where those who have want to eliminate and remove any support for those who have not. And the barriers would be there so that those who have not will not be able to gain anything. It's a matter of control and oppression. Remember the two objectives of oppression, deprivation and degradation. Deprive your resource and deprive you of your self-worth. And so they want to keep people homeless, to keep them, to take away their self-worth, take away the resources, deny them of resources. And so it is a class warfare infused with racism, infused with nationalism. It would actually plunge, I think, America into a violent civil war. One of the proponents of Project 2025 was on Fox News and said that their intention was to implement 2025 and that it would be bloodless, a bloodless coup if the left would allow it. So if they don't have any, if there's no resistance, then they just intend to implement it. And if there is resistance, they intend to extract violence upon America.
Let me ask you a question. I want you to stop right there for a minute. Now, this is just me and you talking. This don't have anything to do with the producer of the show. This is Damita Chatman and Mr. Richard Rose. Do you think if the right people don't get in office in November and 2025 don't pass their agenda, do you think that it would be an uproar?
So I believe that the plan already is for violent is to not certify the election, the November election, unless unless the Republican candidate wins. I think that's already the objective. That was the objective in 2020, and I think it's the objective again in 2024. I don't think there's any question about that. When you look at Georgia's election board, for example, we got 3 people on the election board that Donald Trump named in his rally on Saturday that there's trying to suppress the votes, politically suppress the votes. If we're gonna be a democracy, we should vote. What they want to do is set up rules and set up structures where people can be removed from the voting rolls without recourse.
But let me ask you, Richard, how can a person, and I know I got a lot of Republican friends, and it's not nothing on you, and if you get mad, so be it. We can deal with that. How can a person sit back and know what's going on and go along what's taking place right now and think it's just like eating prime ribs? I just don't understand it.
Well, sometimes they don't know what's going on. They have been led to believe otherwise, or led to believe that the intentions are not what they seem to be. We get it all the time. I mean, people still argue with me about what the objective, what the intentions of Confederate monuments were. Well, the people who built the monuments told you why they built them. So, believe them. I mean, but people can be so taken in by personalities and people, the orators, with just saying what they want to hear. The easiest way to get a person's attention is to be against something that they are already against. If they listen to you, and then you can continue to reel them in when they might not agree with but one thing, but they agree with that is so vehemently, so that they'll go along with the messenger. Well, that's what we've seen.
Well, let me ask you, because I know I'm gonna get in trouble with this, and I was at a gala, and to hear Black men degrade the Black race was pathetic. And these folks, Richard, was educated folks that belonged to fraternities, that belonged to one of the best Black school down here in Georgia. And I was just blown away to hear how they talked about the Black folks. If I'm not mistaken, I even think one of them called it, made me sick to the stomach. I think he called us house niggeros. How could you be so educated and belong to Black fraternities and go along with the stuff that they're putting out, that was put out Saturday at a rally down here? Just tell me how.
Well, it's easy. So there's a progression of oppression. The first reaction to oppression is resistance. The second reaction is acknowledgement, to say, okay, this is where I am, and you can still be in a resistance mode. Say, how do I get out of it? The third one is acceptance, where the oppressors has the rules of oppression are accepted by members of the oppressed class. Like Black folk had to get off the sidewalk to let white folks pass on the sidewalk. That was accepting oppression. Black folks sat in the balcony in movie theaters. It went up the side door. Black folks sat at the back of the bus. That's acceptance of oppression. But the fourth level is complicity, where members of the oppressed class not only agree with the oppressor, but facilitate the oppression among other members of the oppressed class. And they adopt some of the things. For example, you heard black folks say, well, I'm not going to that. I'm not going to a black plumber. They don't get it right. They don't, I'm gonna find me a white plumber. Well, that's accepting the rules of oppression, and that's what's being taught, that black folks not good enough. I was working with did a lot of work with Hosea Williams when he was alive, and one day there was a black politician who had a press conference about a tax problem he had, and everybody around him, the press, the PR person, the lawyer, the accountant, they were all white. And I went to Hosea's office for some other reason. I said, well, Hosea, I don't understand that. I said, this is Atlanta. You can find black folk good at everything in Atlanta. It's not like lack of resources. And he teased me. He said, Richard, white folks' ice is colder. You know that. And sometimes black people have been pressed to believe, conditioned to believe that if it's white, it's better. We have to throw off that oppression. That's a symptom, and that's a policy of oppression.
And that's a show all by itself right there. that's a show all by itself. Let me ask you, Project 2025, how will our banking systems be deregulated, and how will it impact us?
Well, I don't think that part happened.
Okay.
But what the intention is to take away some of the structure that doesn't work now. Like, banks are supposed to make a certain amount of investment in the communities in which they exist. They're supposed to have community reinvestment policies and actually put money back into those communities. Well, it's not working very well, but it does work sometime, and there are some benefits of that. If you take away those conditions that's meant to spread the wealth and to benefit the entire community for that bank being able to operate in a free society. What Project 2025 seeks to do is to take away the concept of a free and open society where a rising tide would lift all boats. It wants to empower and expand oligarchical function that already exists, to keep the people with money, with the benefits, and those who don't have it will not have an opportunity to advance themselves.
Okay. Look, Project 2025 talking about the justice system, and right now this is just me, and I've never been in the justice system, but just watching and going through some of the stuff that I see, I've always said that we have two systems. We have a system for the white folks. We have a system for the black folks. White folks can do the same thing the black folks do. Black folks go a little bit. So how would Project 2025 affect our justice system? Because right now, some of our justice system need to be fixed. How would that affect?
Well, again, there are safeguards in our structure of government now, based on lawsuits, based on political compromises that try to ensure that there's equal justice for all. But as you mentioned, it's not equal justice. It's based on race, it's based on class, it's based on politics at a local level. For example, a district attorney, a local district attorney, can decide on his or her own whether to prosecute a violation or not prosecute a violation. That could be based on them being a neighbor, a friend, a person of a different race, or other political connections. You know, the district attorney in Clark County, and for example, said she's not gonna prosecute low-level possessions of marijuana. What they want to do is take away. They say they want to take away. They want to take away the discretion that local district attorneys have in prosecuting within their jurisdiction. But what that will do is do exactly what the opposite of what they intend to do. What that will do is make it all political, and so that, you know, Democrats would be in a Democrat county, only Republicans would be prosecuted, so to speak. In a Republican county, only Democrats would be prosecuted. So all of those guardrails that we have, Project 2025 wants to remake government and take away all the experience, negate the experience that we've had to try to make it better, to try to make it more perfect. But to take those guardrails away and leave them at the mercy of the oligarchy class.
Wow. Wow. Let me ask you, do you think, how would this affect Project 2025 will also affect the way people live, like if you own Section 8 or HUD? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, they want to take away that whole Section 8 program, the HUD housing. I don't know where the objective, where the intention is, but that's what they want to do: take away any social service benefit. They want to take the socialism out of America, and there is socialism. Social Security is socialism. But they want to take it out of America, and everything based on money, based on means. And so it will be a lot of homelessness. It would be, I don't know how that would go backwards in a peaceful manner. See, I don't think this Project 2025 being implemented is certain, I think, to result in a civil war.
So people that paid in
race war and class war.
But so you telling me people that paid in Social Security at Project 2025 move forward. You paid in the Social Security. I'm paying in Social Security. How would that affect me and you?
Well, first of all, that it paid into the system is not exactly accurate. It's a trust fund, but it's not a trust fund. In fact, Social Security is a tax, and Medicare is a tax. Okay.
Okay.
And the first people, when it first implemented the tax, people had benefits who had never paid the tax. And the objective, they continue to go up in terms of the tax amount in order to stabilize it, so that there is a trust fund portion that will be there when the next generation gets to be retirement. So it's a little bit more complicated than assuming that you paid into it and now you get something back. But the bottom line is, every industrial nation in the world has benefits similar to Social Security. And the other industrial nations in the world have basically Medicare for all, which is what Bernie Sanders talks about. That there's health care based on a tax, based on a national benefit. And so we, instead of going the way of Project 2025, we should go the way of other industrialized nations and make us stronger. Our healthcare costs more than anybody, more than Canada, more than England, more than other industrialized countries. We have to, Project 2025 would take us back, would take us out of humanized America. and more of a 16th century European structure. That's not where we need to go.
Yeah. Now let me ask you. I know some people think that this it basically it come down to race. That's just me talking, but I know some people think that it won't affect them. Tell me, will the project 2025 it's going to affect the minority folks, but it's going to affect everybody? Do you agree? It's going to affect the white folks, everybody.
Well, it's going to affect anybody. Again, it's more of a it's a class driven restructure of American and American government. And so, yeah, it's going to affect all races. But the crazy part about it is, by and large, Black people know how to vote their interests. Poor white people do not. Poor white people consistently vote against their own interests. They will vote against Medicare, Medicaid expansion, but they need it. I don't need it, but they need it.
Well, why is that? Why is that?
Because the first thing they want to do is be better than Black folk. They think their status in the society makes them superior to Black folk. So they're not going to vote for anything that might benefit Black folk, even if it'll benefit them.
Oh, wow. Wow. Let me ask you, I got a question here. What do you think about guaranteed income for all?
Well, that's going to be hard to do because money's got to come from somewhere. You know, we are a capitalist society. I think that there are, politically that won't pass. And of course, that's the opposite of what Project 2025 would want to do anyway. But I think that we'll have to maintain a mix of capitalism and socialism that we have now.
Okay.
And I think a better use of our resources. We should get more money from oil companies who drilling in America. That's America's oil. That doesn't belong to them. That's America's oil, and we should get more benefit from it.
Okay. Now let me because I got to ask this question. Someone sent this in. Let's talk about the Schedule F.
You talking about the tax Schedule F?
It said the community is asking about Schedule F, federal workers, Project 2025.
I'm not familiar with Schedule F.
Okay. We'll go back to that, and then if not, then I get it with Miss Barnes on Friday. Let me ask you a question. Do you think this 2024 election would determine where we go in the future 20 years from now?
Well, I think every election portends for the future. Let me give you, for example, we saw the movie Hidden Figures about the Black women who worked for NASA, in the space industry. And Taraji Henson's character had to go a half a mile to go to the restroom because they had segregated restrooms. Now, this was in the 60s. They had colored and black, colored and white restroom. Well, that was not always the case in federal government. That started under Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson segregated federal employment, and that continued because he went out of office in 1920. But that continued for several decades, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so every election can have policies and practices that can last beyond the presidency. Look at our current Supreme Court, for example. We have 2 or 3 people on that court who are absolutely anti-democratic. There was a recent vote there was 7-2 vote to that it did just where state of Texas went to the Supreme Court to try to change what New York was prosecuting Trump. And it just can't happen like that. But these two Supreme Court justices who are on there for life decided they wanted to side with Texas in a political. It's politics. It's not about justice.
Let me ask you this. The former president said that if he get elected again, that we would never have to vote again. What you think about that?
Well, some of us took it as saying he's going to change this into a dictatorship. Now, the question is, I mean, he's almost 80 years old. I don't know how long he thought that was going to last. But some people claim he was just meaning he was going to change the government so they didn't have to worry about it anymore. Well, either one of those scenarios would be unacceptable to me. Whatever he meant, we have a democratic republic, and then we vote for government, national government every 4 years. It's worked better than it used to work. It's getting better, and we need to continue to make progress.
Let me ask you a question. Because we're winding down. You know, me and you can just sit here all day and talk. But let me ask you a question. It was an organization that was on the news last week. You probably saw the news. And I want to know, how did that group of men come to kind of belittle the vice president? You probably saw it. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to call you might be part of that organization. Tell me.
Well, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, what are we okay, let me do it. What are we thinking? Because right now, the vice president is taking so much heat from everybody, and the woman always going to take the heat. Why isn't the people embracing her, but yet they'll go and throw their whole body around 45? So help me understand the mentality of the folks. I'm talking about the folks here in Georgia right now. I don't care about, I'm talking about, what is the mentality of these folks down here, Richard?
Well, we are always, we're going to be different. You know, people are going to be different. People have their philosophies. They have levels of education, levels of information, depending on where they get the information from. That's going to happen. But I see, I think they had 20,000 Black men across the country on a Zoom conference last week.
Yes.
In support of Vice President Kamala Harris. There are people who will not support her. There will be women who won't support a woman. There'll be men who won't support a woman. There are biases. We live with biases. But I think that I think we all, the more information we get out, like talking about Project 2025, for example, will give people information that they can associate with certain candidates and make a better decision.
Yeah. Now, I think, because I'm on a call tonight at 8 o'clock with the pastors across the country. Do you think that we should go a little harder on making sure the vote get out, the people vote? Do you think that we should go from the crack house, let me go back, from the pulpit all the way down to the crack house to make sure that vote get out?
Well, I will. I think those of us who understand the situation here and that it can be worse, we'll try to work to make sure not only will I vote, but I'm make sure at least 10 other people vote. If we all decide that we're going to help others get it. I mean, we know what collaboration means. You know, when I was on the picket line as a 13-year-old, it was no personal benefit for me, but I understood it was a benefit for the community, and I was willing to put myself out there on the line along with many, many others. And so we have to understand that no man is an island. We have to work together in an organized fashion, and we will reap the benefit of it. You know, even when tragedies happen. For example, we know what happened to Emmett Till, but what most people don't know is that store had to go out of business because the Black community said, we're not going to buy from this store anymore.
So do you think that us banding together, one voice, one fight, that we can make it over the finish line in November?
I think we can.
I'm gonna ask you, and I know you're not with the Democrats, you're not with the Republicans, you just with your organization. Do you think January the 1st, January the 20th, inauguration, we're gonna have the first Black president woman of the United States of America?
Well, I believe that's entirely possible. I think it's likely, and I'm going to do everything I can so that, you know, what's worse is the threat of another Donald Trump presidency. That is the threat that white Americans should be more concerned about than Black Americans, because they have the power. And they will lose the most.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I read something today and someone sent it to me, and it said that 45 didn't make America racist. Racist has been here. They just now is open to do what they want to do because you got him at the front of it. Do you believe that?
Well, America has always been racist, and America's racism has been bipartisan. So what Trump did was made it okay to be evil and racist and hateful and violent. He made it okay to be violent. And so we have to understand that. What we have to do is everything we can do. It's up to us individually to take a stand against that kind of tyranny.
Thank you. Mr. Rose, why don't you go and give your closing out, and then we're gonna go on and close this thing out. I wish I can talk to you all night, but like I said, I want to get on this conference call. But I want to thank you for coming, and we'll touch bases and make sure that we educate people. What you got to say, Mr. Rose?
Sure. Yeah, my organization is Communities United for Justice. You can reach us. Our website is CU4justice.org, CU4justice.org. Email us at info@cu4justice.org. Phone number is 678-374-8228. 678-374-8228. We are working with other grassroots organizations in an effort to get out the vote across Georgia, from Chattooga to Brunswick. We're going to be working in concert with each other to make sure we'll have a series of events. We're gonna be phone calling. If you want to volunteer, give us a call. Go to our website, cu4justice.org. Click on add us to your contact. Add yourself to our contact list, and we're going to be working hard to get this vote out.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Again, I want to thank you for taking your time out tonight to talk about Project 2025. It's a lot in it. You can't talk about Project 2025 in an hour. That's an all-day thing right there. And so right now, I know me and Richard, we kind of live and eat this right here. So again, I want to thank you. Make sure that you get out and vote. Make sure you understand. If you don't understand it, ask questions. But most of all, I need folks to get out and vote. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm just telling you to vote. Well, you know what? I ain't going to even lie like that, because see, I couldn't even get it out like that. I'm going to tell you who to vote for. Vote for Harris. Vote for them Democrats, because we cannot afford to go back. Our democracy is on the line. It is some good Republicans. Now, let me put that out there. It's some good Republicans. It's some good Democrats, just like it's some bad Democrats and it's some bad Republicans. But we have to put our personal agenda aside and think about the people. It's about the people now. It's not about nobody but the people. Don't wake up November the 7th. I'm going to say 2 days, November the 7th, and you say, Lord, have mercy. Do you agree with me, Richard?
I agree with you. Let's go to work.
Let's go to work. Thank you so much, Mr. Rose.
All right.
Have a good one.
You too.